Oh, Vox. Oh, Ezra Klein. He wrote this article, Is the Media Making American Politics Worse? A Difficult Conversation About the State of Political Journalism by Ezra Klein. Ezra, the answer is, as far as I can tell, you are making things worse. And I'll give you an example. First, let me say this. I didn't read through the article yet. I often don't. Sometimes I do. But I want to react to this in real time with all y'all watching me do it. Because Ezra Klein defended a highly dubious, fictitious study alleging a bunch of nonsensical things that, like, people who watch my channel are being driven to extremism, while they omitted several people who, long story short, hit piece came out, made fake claims, alleged I worked with people I never did, and omitted a bunch of people on the left who actually did the things they claimed I'm doing. Long story short, Ezra Klein defended the piece, called Dave Rubin a right-wing reactionary, and that means somebody who wants to uphold the status quo and all this other nonsense. Ezra Klein didn't fact-check, he didn't look at any of the data, he just decided to espouse complete and utter nonsense, and now he's wondering, is media making American politics worse? Ezra Klein, I am upset with you, okay? I will absolutely disrespect you in this regard because you have an obligation to be honest and fair. But you know what? I don't think that's your intention. So let's see what he has to say. Let's see what he has to say about whether or not media is making American politics worse. He says, I'm a political journalist. I've been a political journalist for 15 years. I believe in my profession, but right now I'm worried we're failing. I'm worried we're making American politics worse and not better. Thank you. I would agree with that assessment. And I would ask you to consider going back to that right-wing reactionary smear piece you did because you were mad at Dave Rubin. Like, all these people get mad at Dave Rubin, and then for some reason they wrote me into it. Why? Because I went on the show a couple times? These people are nuts. That's not because journalists aren't doing remarkable, courageous, heroic work. Look at the Me Too movement, the investigations of Donald Trump's finances, the remarkable reporting that journalists do every day in the midst of war zones, and Ebola outbreaks and authoritarian regimes. And I want to stop right there and say, first of all, a lot of people talk to me and they tell me that they really like that I go on the ground and I do a lot of these things that I do. I don't know if I'm actually going to be going on the ground to American political events in the near future because too many people are, they recognize me, they threaten me, and I was actually planning on going to DC for the Kavanaugh protests, but people were posting in threads online, talking about me, and it wasn't so much that they were threatening me, but they were like, watch out for this dude, things of that nature, and I'm like, if I go down there, and am I going to be the story? But I digress. I bring this up because I am someone who was in Egypt during the revolution, who was in Ukraine during the Euromaidan movement, which eventually led to what people called the Civil War, although it's really, really died down. I was in Venezuela at the start of the student conflict. I've been to many dangerous places. I was shot at on the ground. I am one of these people who went there to try and figure out what was going on and produce this stuff. And I take issue with Ezra Klein, a wealthy desk-sitting commentator, equating what they do to what I did and what others do. And even as of right now, what I'm doing in my hotel room talking, I would never claim that this sitting here criticizing Ezra Klein is anywhere near as important and respectable as the actual journalists who go on the ground in dangerous places. Admittedly, there are people who have gone to much more dangerous places than I, who have risked their lives. There are people who have died doing what they think is right in the field of journalism. Ezra Klein, as far as I know, maybe he was a war correspondent. I'm pretty sure he wasn't, but he is not that person. He is one of these limousine liberal types, sitting atop his ivory tower in New York City, criticizing those beneath him. And I take issue with the wealthy white elites who criticize non-whites using racist rhetoric. Don't forget, Vox Media owns The Verge. They're the ones who employed Sarah Jong, who went on these anti-white tirades. They're the ones who believe in this ridiculous identitarianism. And for that, I give very little respect. And admittedly, I'll give little respect, but and this might be bordering on a lack of civility, I'll admit, so for that I do apologize. I'm not trying to be overtly disrespectful, but I do want to make sure you understand I'm extremely critical of the things you say and do, Ezra Klein. I'm extremely critical of you uncritically looking at fake news and publishing it like it's true and calling someone like Dave Rubin a right-wing reactionary, and by proxy, me, because I was in that dubious study. I take issue with that. And again, I take issue with you equating the work you're doing in your office with the work I and others have done on the ground getting shot at, wearing bulletproof vests because we wanted to know what was happening in the world and share the truth with people around the world. There's a stark difference between what I'm doing here in this room, what you're doing at your computer, and the things I did and others have done in dangerous countries to understand and to challenge those in power. Let's not forget a journalist was just killed. A journalist was just killed in New Jersey after being attacked in a hate crime. I think it's over a dozen journalists were killed in Mexico. So please, don't equate political journalism with war correspondence. He says, It's because everything around us has changed. Our business models, the way people read us, the way we compete with each other, the way we're manipulated, and we're not keeping up. Instead, we're getting played by the outrage merchants and con artists and trolls and polarizers who understand this new world better. Oh, were you talking about yourself? Because I believe I remember you made a piece calling Dave Rubin a right-wing reactionary when Dave simply asked for an honest critique. By all means, there are things that I disagree with. Dave Rubin and I disagree on a lot of things. I'm actually critical of some of the things Dave Rubin has said. But Dave Rubin is a calm, rational individual. He'll talk to me about it. And I know that I can send him a message like, hey, Dave, I don't agree with you in this regard. And Eric Weinstein, who sits down with Dave all the time, calmly just says, hey, I'd wish you'd consider some of these things and some of these options. And Dave goes, yeah, I will. And that's how Dave changes, because Dave can self-reflect. And the more we have this, Ezra Klein's dishonest attack at calling someone like Dave Rubin a right-wing reactionary, you're talking about yourself. I have to wonder if the reason Ezra Klein is doing this is to hide behind a call for civility and honesty while actually making the problem worse himself with dishonesty and disingenuous tactics. He says President Trump is the most successful media hacker out there, but he's not the only one, and that's true. We are being used to fracture American democracy, and I don't think we know how to stop it. I do. Maybe you could fact check. Maybe when someone puts out a study that's not real, you will look into it before just reporting on it. There's a study it's from the group Hidden Tribes, and I talked about this, and I used its data, and it shows how progressives are 8% of the country. You may be familiar with this video I did on it. There's a reason why I use that study, and there's a reason why I'm critical of the Data and Society fake report on me. It's because the Hidden Tribe study cited their sources, showed the questions they asked, and said it was a YouGov poll. It was data from YouGov. YouGov is respectable and credible. And because I was able to see the questions they asked, see the data, and know it came from YouGov, I said the likelihood this is credible is high, and I'm willing to use it. That's not what Ezra Klein did. Ezra Klein saw some ridiculous op-ed that was alleging to be some kind of academic study, and then used it to smear people he didn't like. And now here he is acting like he's aware that, oh, what we're doing is divisive. It's like, well, let me calm down a little bit. Let me calm down, okay? If Ezra Klein is self-reflecting and saying he's doing things wrong, that's a good thing. And I will respect him for it, and I will absolutely, in seconds, if Ezra Klein says, I'm sorry about writing something that was misleading, I will say, thank you. I accept your apology. I appreciate it. I hope he does. I'm not saying I don't think he will, but I kind of don't think he will. It's harder to stand a machine when you're inside of it. I am. You need people on the outside who can see the system more clearly, so I asked Jay Rosen to join me on my podcast. Rosen, a professor of journalism at New York University and the founder of PressThink. He's one of our sharpest critics and interpreters. I wanted him to help me think through what's wrong in the press, what I'm doing wrong in my own work. You can listen to our whole conversation here, yada yada. So now it goes into Ezra and Jay Rosen and back and forth. I guess he just printed the podcast. I don't want to read through the whole thing. I'll tell you this. Jay Rosen once wrote that I was the most innovative journalist in the street. And other than that, I don't know a whole lot about Jay Rosen. But he's often cited as this great expert. I've met him a couple times. I think he is a rather stoic, pragmatic individual. Don't know too much about him. But I do know that there are some professors, some famous media critics who work in the university system in New York, that I don't want to name, that are progressive activists, that hide behind journalistic ethics to push a political agenda. And then what they do is they have, and this is not pointed at Jay Rosen, but they have these conversations about honesty in media, acting as some authority, because I'm a professor and I know what's right and I know what's going on, and then they smear people. And then they accuse people of being the bad guys. Listen, I have no problem with someone saying, Tim, you're criticizing Ezra Klein, but I think you've done something similar. Absolutely. I don't know if I've gotten things wrong, because if I did, I would do my best to correct them. There have been instances where I have taken videos down. There have been instances where I changed the titles and updated the description with a link to a proper source because I don't know the best way. Correcting on YouTube is really difficult. But I strive to make sure that when people say things like, you might notice that some of the titles changed in various videos because people thought that the way I framed things were misleading. And I don't want to do that, right? Most notably when the woman from Georgia said that the blue wave would consist of undocumented immigrants, my immediate interpretation was that she was saying they were going to vote. And then I got a comment from Nuance Bro saying she never said they were going to vote. And I was like, is that how people are taking it? Like, am I interpreting this wrong? So I changed it to she implies. I think that's fair because I do feel like she was implying, like the blue wave is supposed to be the people who rise up and vote in the midterms. And I don't want to be misleading. I want to make sure that there's a fair understanding even when I'm doing a rant opinion video. So by all means, Ezra, you can come to me and say, here's all the things you did wrong, and I will apologize in 2 seconds, and I will correct them, and I will strive to be better. And I hope the same can be said of you. And if this piece is being genuine, then I applaud you. I applaud Vox, and I applaud Ezra for sitting down and trying to figure out how to do better. That's a good thing. I'm upset because Ezra wrote this smear piece. I'm upset because he plays this game, and he called Dave Rubin and by proxy me and others right-wing reactionaries. It's absurd, it's unfair, and it wasn't a real debate. It was him grandstanding on his massive platform, going after Dave Rubin, who admittedly Dave Rubin has a big platform too, but I have no chance for rebuttal. So when you rope in Rubin, and then you guys have your back and forth, that leaves me holding the bag with no opportunity. There are people who don't have the same reach you guys do, so I'm upset about it, admittedly. I think Vox, here's the thing, I tell people this. There are 2 sites that I go to more than any other, and it's BuzzFeed News and it's Vox. And it doesn't mean I'm not critical of them. I think BuzzFeed News is actually pretty good. I think they're biased, but I think they try really hard to be honest, and their editor-in-chief and staff respond to me when I have questions. And that is extremely respectable, and that is in my opinion, as a journalist, as a commentator, as someone involved in the political sphere, if you're willing to calmly say, here's what we think and why, when I ask you, you have my respect, and we don't have to agree. I can be wrong, you might be wrong, you might be right, I might be right. But look, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I've got another video coming up that I recorded last night, so there might be some overlap. But Cenk Uygur, when I approached him to ask him about some fake news they published that included me going after Dave Rubin, he snapped at me, started cussing me out, calling me a right-winger, said I lost my effing mind and things like that. And that's just unacceptable, and I have no respect for that. So I will have respect for Ezra for doing this, for saying, oh, okay, maybe we're doing something wrong. Thank you. I'd appreciate it if you'd go back and reflect on some of the other content you made. And so, as for the Young Turks, though, I'm disheartened. I'm upset. So that video is going to be up in a few minutes. Stick around, and it's going to be like a 20-minute rant on modern politics and what happened with Cenk Uygur swearing at me, insulting me, and causing a scene at Politicon.